Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Spec-5 World Tour. We are here at the wonderful Brands Hatch circuit, 2.42 miles for what is going to be a wonderful race. Here in what is an ever-competitive series, I am Tom Dillon. Alongside me today is Randall McGrew, and Brands Hatch, it's in Kent, and it's such a historic circuit, having opened in 1950, and Randall, it should always deliver some racing, and especially in these MX-5 cars.
Yeah, especially with a pretty cool track temperature today, should see some good fighting.
And we'll get straight into the action, I suppose, as we're just a little bit off the ways through qualifying. And now, as you can see, the bottom of your screen, all of the driver boxes flashing up on through. So we'll get into that in a moment. But of course, Brands Hatch being such the historic track that it is, it's always a pleasure to watch cars go around here, especially the MX-5 cars. As they are, and you can see the temperature as well. It's fairly cool. It's of course I think later in the evening in terms of in the game, so we should be seeing a lot of entertaining racing, lots of fast lap times being set as well. As we look here at the number 9 car going on through for what I suspect will be a full lap at this stage in qualifying. We notice how in the MX-5 cars they tend to do a couple of laps back to back. They don't really like to do the Formula 1 strategy of go out, do a lap, and come back in. And this is actually Fike only 600ths of a second off of the car ahead, and only a couple of tenths of a second off of pole position. I say that's changed immediately with Coates setting a fast lap time. Martin as well has gone quite quick in the pro class up into third, and well, the lap times tumbling in as expected. It's rather close.
After watching last week's race, I expect the front 5 or 6 will be pretty tight on time, and the entire field will be pretty close as well. So we should see a pretty good race going into Druids that first lap.
And remember turn 1 as well. See going through there now. Very, very fast right-hander off camber 2 slightly. You always have the car kicking out on you. Never the easiest corner to take, particularly in a race, and particularly in a car like this that always likes to grab on the brakes. It kind of jolts forward in a way, if you notice, heading through this corner. Look at how the car sort of moves forward and puts a lot of weight onto the front axles. Always makes it more difficult. Here's the number 7 car then. This is Polici, currently sitting down in 8th position. Of course, I make that 7th in the pro class. Of course, we've got the overall standings here with the AM class single runner Martin up in 7th position. And what I can tell you is that Ray Lombardi is on a flying lap. Purple in all of his sectors so far. No, that's not a flying lap. That's flying straight into the barrier for Polici. And you can see it's dangling off as well, the bits on the car. That's going to be a fairly costly repair job. We've only got about a third left of the qualifying session. We've heading into about 6 minutes left. Here's the replay. He's heading up the hill and then just dips a wheel onto the grass. And I can tell you, Randall, I was commentating on a race here a couple of weeks ago, and that would seem to be, particularly on iRacing, that particular section of track, dipping the wheel onto the grass there, that seems to be the danger zone for a lot of the drivers.
Most definitely. You got all your weight on those outside wheels, and then you tip, especially the rears, into the grass, and it's just going to send the end around on you. And was not able to keep it out of the wall that time. Sometimes you can get lucky. You're pretty much a passenger at that point.
And a passenger he was. Here is McLeod heading through sector 3 now. Just trying to keep the car in a nice balance of sorts.
Some of these corners on this track, it's really hard to keep that momentum going.
Yes, and it's a track where you need a lot of momentum as well, it's fair to say. McLeod goes into 4th position, 3,000th of a second off of the top 3 spots. So it's a long race today. It's always a long race in this particular championship. Usually in MX5s, you tend towards having sprint races. Last week it was a 45-minute race, and there's plenty of time to make up a single position, particularly in the MX5 cars. Here is the AM class leader of Martin, the number 149 car. Nice black livery, a little bit of electric green on the back.
He's really punched above his weight here. You don't expect to see the open class guys this far up the order.
But no, you definitely don't. We saw it last week as well. We saw one of the AM guys really punching above his weight, if you will, above the order, and then just wasn't able to capitalise in the end in that occasion. I believe that was Hayes, and he spun and ended up, not being in the race towards the end. But he was right up there, I think, is the crux of that point. So we see the number 112 on a flyer as well. This is Ray Lombardi, currently sitting in 12th position overall. And it's not telling me what class he's in, actually, on my
I believe
title
he's in
screen.
the open class, Tom.
Yes, in the open class. Now, I apologise. I've been calling them the AM class all the while. It's the open class. But same effect, it's the separated by I rating, I believe. Heading on through, though, it says he's purple in the class, though I suspect that because it's his class, that it's not purple overall. But we'll have a wait and see. 139.4 is the time to beat. Let's see what Ray Lombardi can come across the line to do. It's not going to quite beat those heights. It's going to be 140.1, so he's not actually going to improve on his own lap time.
Though if he can keep that pace up, it should be pretty competitive in the race.
Yes, during the race it should be, and a couple of minutes now in qualifying, and we are going to go through the championship standings, and well, it is Rui Coimbra who leads in the pro class, level on points with Ronnie Coates.
Hey, good luck, everybody.
And Geordie Fike is in 3rd position with Adam J. McLeod in 4th position with Odis Adams Jr. in 5th. Tom Rascher is in 6th with Mitchell Peak, 7th at the moment in the pro class with Brian Sabaleski in 8th position. Eugenio Polici is in 9th with Jebediah Babinek in 10th. Greg Mack is in 11th with Curtis M. Jones currently sitting down in 12th. And it's David Stab from Simon Fairweather and Kenneth Stab from Zach Burke, from James Al Hansen, and then Nicky Barovich. And I believe that is... Oh, no, we've got a couple more. Giancarlo Lenzi, Joshua Soto, Brennan Horan, Elvis Rankin, Gavin Cohn, Kevin Langer, and Yuanxi Lin. And those last few ones not having only having 0 points, so not actually scoring. But as we move on to the open class, I'll give you the honours of doing this one, Randall.
It looks like we have Lee Martin leading the way in the open class with 349 points, with Jose Gonzalez following with 328. Greg Brockway sitting in 3rd place currently for the podium for the season with 297 points. But don't look now. Here comes Tom Athon and Andrew Kosick, both knocking on the door for the season podium. We got Paulo Coimbra in 6th place, Stephen Helliwell in 7th, Josh Olson in 8th, Charles Vaccaro in 9th, Sean Hayes rounding out the top 10, and then there's a big gap back to Jerry Piero in 11th, John Casey in 12th, right behind Jerry, Edgar Santinelli with 48 points in 13th, Ray Lombardi, who's looking to really improve tonight with that really fast qualifying, sitting on 44 points, and Charles Bowley with 43 points in 15th. And it looks like the qualifying session only has a few seconds left. I don't think we have any more cars out on track, so hopefully we'll be seeing that grid soon.
Yes, the qualifying session has drawn to a close. It wasn't quite a close. I think it's because of the 4-lap rule, isn't it? You're only allowed to do 4 laps in qualifying. So a lot of clearly all the drivers actually doing their full 4 laps.
Guys, super quick
In the end,
meeting because I don't have my virtual desktop.
here's the grid then,
so
as Tom Rache is on
here.
pole position from Roy Coimbra in second. Odis Adams Jr. starts in third with Adam McLeod in fourth. Jordi Fike finishes starts fifth with Ronnie Coates starting sixth. Lee Martin starts seventh. Mitchell Peak in eighth position. Then it's Eugenio Pellicci from Greg Mack and then Jebediah Babinek.
Reminder, we do go on green. Congratulations
we
to
move
pole.
down the order. Brian Zaleski starts 13th with Sean Hayes in 14th. Kenneth Stab in 15th with Jose Gonzalez in 16th. Josh Olsen starts 17th from Simon Foweather, who's stuck in a little bit of an open class sandwich down in 18th. And then it's Charles Vaccaro from Edgar Saccalini from Tom Athan and then Andrew Kosic. And of course, Greg Brockway, Paolo Coimbra.
1x for 1 or 2x.
I believe we've got a couple more as well. We do. It's John Casey and David Stab who's going to have to cut his way through the field, not setting a lap time in the qualifying
section. The last corner all the way around. You don't have to announce it. Just no cutting into the pits from the left-hand side. If you do,
here we go then. Waiting for the call for the iRacing Porsche safety car to take us away, and I think I'm going to use this opportunity to go through our sponsor read for the evening, as we are sponsored this evening on this broadcast by TPC Motorsports, and they are a 4-year-old racing team based in Birmingham, Alabama. That currently races the Caterham 7 420R in the HSR series and a BMW Spec E46. So we thank them very much for their support on the stream. And, well, we'll get to the racing here as the formation lap gets underway. And Randall, what are your general expectations for the race now we've seen such a close qualifying?
I expect a chaotic first lap, especially coming into Druids, but I suspect that the leaders will sort themselves out pretty quickly and try to get single file and form a breakaway. We'll see who decides to get aggressive early on. It could spell disaster, though, because you could easily lose the draft. And the draft is very important.
Well, I think that someone who's going to have a difficult time is David Stab, who is going to have to cut his way through this field, cut his way through the open field as well, before we can even think about class positions, and that's going to be a very, very difficult job for him. Double file start, of course, and the rolling start means that you really don't have to worry too much about getting the start nailed on.
David's really going to have his hands full coming through the open class. He's going to have a delicate balance of patience and aggression to get around a lot of these cars.
And well, what a beautiful day it is in the simulation. It was a rather nice day in the UK as well. So for the first time ever, Kent looking absolutely lovely. And of course, this track being around for 70 odd years, 1950 it opened. I was reading a little bit earlier, and it's crazy to think that we can be racing here this evening on the sim as well, 72 years later. But the drivers right now will just be focused on getting this start going nice and quickly. The iRacing safety car is going to pull into the pits in a moment, and then it's going to be in the hands of Rathje to get this race underway. And there we go, he is in control of the pace, and we're going to wait now for the green flag to fly for the Spec-5 World Tour round 9. Watch the flag on the left hand side.
Back in.
Green flag is the call, and we are racing here for the Spec-5 World Tour at Brands Hatch. Coimbra immediately heads into the lead, down into turn 1, but Rathje is just going to be a little bit better on the brakes, heading on through, and he gets a little bit of a buffer as well. 0.2 of a second he leads, heading out of turn 1, down into the hairpin. for the first time. Everyone is clean further back. A couple of jostles for positions. Lee Martin loses one further down the order. So does Coates and McLeod. And at the back you can see they're jostling for the position. Someone almost on the grass there. Brockway's lost a few positions off the start as well. But at the moment, Rafshay leads pretty safely through the field, and Coimbra not really doing a great deal to challenge him despite getting that better start.
Looked like Lee Martin lost a couple spots there on that start. He's still up there in the top 10, leading the open class.
Golson has got past Foweather as well, as we continue to watch Rafshay trying to hold off Coimbra just behind him. Coimbra at the moment, you would suspect it would be similar to what we saw last week, where he doesn't really want to attack, I suppose, and just wants to sort of relax and stay behind. Being said, he needs to stay in the slipstream here. If Rafshay can break that slipstream and get a little bit of a buffer, perhaps 1 or 2 seconds, then all of a sudden he is going to run away with this race. It's a long way to go though, 45 minutes at that. You can see just further behind there's a big gaggle of cars trying to not trip over each other. That's Adams, who's really pressured by Fike, who himself is pressured by McLeod there, you can see as well. In fact, here is the battle. The number 73 car trying to get through down the inside, down into turn. What is he going to have the legs to do so? It doesn't look like he is. It is quite a significant braking zone, but he's going to find himself under pressure with the 56 around the outside as well, who's going to still have the outside line heading down into the hairpin. I can't quite see at the top of my screen who's got on through there, and I don't think there has been a change of position. They're still side by side, the number 73 and the number 56, and in the end it is the 56 who gets himself through. A nice and measured move in the end. I'm going to be doing that onto the grass either. He's going to allow the 73 back on through and down the inside he goes, does McLeod. Coimbra now 8/10 of a second behind Rafshay, so really Rafshay is getting this race and taking it by the scruff of the neck at this stage.
And it looks like David Stab was able to be pretty opportunistic on the start. He's already up 5 spots after just 1 lap. So see if he can keep that up.
Absolutely, and he would be expecting as much as well, being in that class, you know, the pro class, in an open field. He'll be hoping that he can, on pure pace, you know, stab his way through, if you'll excuse the shameless pun there. But the number 36 car really right now a little bit stuck. He's been finding his way through and not quite able to get through just yet, but he'll be trying to just hound the back of that little gaggle of cars there. And well, further through the top 10, it looks like a pretty line of stern running at the moment.
Mitchell Peak managed to make up 3 spots on that start, and I can tell you from experience racing against him, the guy is quick, so expect to see him punching his way towards the top 3 soon.
And there was a little bit of a movement. I believe it was Backneck getting past Coates. I'm not too sure though. I'll have to give it a look back. Stab, the other Stab, has got through on Mack, and then Hayes is having a little bit of a battle with Foweather, who also started in a little bit of a sandwich of open class cars. We're having a look at the moment at the number 2 car and the number 137. The number 137 of Stab. He's going to find himself under pressure by the number 2 of Mack. And at the moment, can't find a way through. Can the number 2, the 137, just holding firm, nice and ahead. Lombardi is behind the both of them, trying to find and sift his way. And yes, someone onto the grass. Here we go then.
David Stab. It's hard to see from this far ahead. Is that red
Here we
car?
go, and there's side-by-side action. I apologise, Randall, and someone's onto the grass. It's the number 2 car onto the grass, and now oh no, there's contact with the 97. The 236 on the inside went for a move, and now the number 2 is into the gravel. That's Mack. He's now falling his way down the open class order, and the other Stab now is trying to get on through, and he's managed to get through the number 36. He's now got past, I think it's 2 cars, and I don't really know what happened there. It's just a load of cars seemed to merge into one, and they all ended up off of the racetrack. Here's the 236 trying to pressure the number 94. You can see ahead, we're watching the number 2, still just trying to recollect his thoughts. And that was what? Oh no, there's a crash!
Oh no, again.
And there's a huge crash. As we get a replay of that, there is a huge crash with Mac into the grass. And, well, again, just on the inside, someone just tapped him round. And here's not what happened. This is what happened down at turn 1, yes. And onto the curb, it was lost ahead. And then he got a tap behind as well, whilst trying to react to that one. He was lucky in the end not to hit the number 164. But it went from bad to worse for Greg Mack in the space of about 35 seconds there.
It looked like Vaccaro maybe checked up a little bit going into turn 1 there, and checked up a bit more than Greg Mack was expecting, and they were both heavy in the brakes and just managed to make a little bit of contact, send them both around.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one to watch, really, because it's just one of those things that sometimes can happen in racing, and you've got so much stuff going on ahead of you that you really... It's really difficult to focus sometimes, and I think Greg Mack was a little bit of a victim of that for the moment. It's a 45-minute race, though, and 5 seconds isn't a huge gap back up to the pack. So I imagine once we start to see things like pit stops and things like that, it should be okay. But here is a battle then. This is Kenneth Stab trying to battle with Sabaleski down into turn 1. I wonder if he's going to go for a slightly audacious move. He's definitely thinking about it. You can see that he was thinking about it, but in the end he just holds station for a moment. And I think he's going to be holding station for quite a while, actually, particularly if Sabaleski gets his defence right.
If they work together here, they can reel in Lee Martin and try to rejoin the pack ahead and maybe make some more spots out of it.
Yeah, and that's the odd karting tactic, isn't it? Work with someone to sift your way through a field. And you really have to have trust between your fellow drivers for that to happen. And I wonder if any of these guys will be having things like race engineers or anything like that. And I think they call them crew chiefs, is the official term on this game. To try and help them figure out how to get through the field and work with each other, and just that race management, which is really quite a lot of the skill here. You can be as fast as you want, but if you've got no race management, you aren't going to do very well.
You can see out of the cloud showing his nose to Mitchell Peak there a few times coming through the lap. Maybe he's looking to make a move and make his way up.
He's trying to tease his way through and force a mistake, something that, well, a mistake by one guy here might see him go all the way through to second position, but it's still remarkably close as the number 56 actually starts to pressurise the number 9 a little bit. That is Peak and Fike. He can't quite find a way through at the moment. Turn 1 is a huge overtaking opportunity, but the number 9 is round and into the gravel, and he gets tapped round once again. So I imagine he'll have a little bit of damage, but he's able to recollect the car. But down into 10th position is Geordie Fike, and there he just lost the car all by himself, as you can see the replay now. Down into turn 1, he brakes. He was obviously under a little bit of pressure, and then the car just tapped around him. I didn't see any contact down into the corner, but then he was tapped back round in the end and into the gravel, and that's just unfortunately something a little bit awkward to happen to you. There we go. Oh, there was a little bit of contact from the number 56. Actually, he didn't lose it all by himself. Beg my pardon. And yes, well, now he's just going to have to focus on getting back.
I believe it was his teammate that made contact with him.
And, well, what would we say that the golden rule of motor racing is?
That is to beat your teammate, but don't wreck your teammate.
Yes. And, well, unfortunately, he might be beating his teammate now, but he has just grazed the back of him. So, swings and roundabouts, really. But continuing on with Raf still in the lead of this race and controlling it quite nicely. The gap is ebbing and flowing ever so slightly, and at the moment he's just holding on to it for the time being. Number 78 Still pressurising him a little bit. 78 makes a slight mistake. He's a little bit wide. That might invite Adams into a little bit of a move. It's almost less than a tenth of a second as they head into the braking zone. And the number 22 in the end just about thinks against the move. Though I think he was definitely tempted as the 73 goes onto the grass. Well, we'll have to recollect himself maybe a little bit further down the order. He might have lost a couple of positions there. I think he got away with it though.
Tom Bradley is really hoping that the number 2 and 3 cars will fight with each other. He's almost far enough out here to where he won't be giving up much of a slipstream. And to get a breakaway this early on would be pretty huge.
1 second is almost an insurmountable margin as you head towards the end of an MX-5 race. We've still got 35 minutes to go now, 34 minutes as it happens. And that 1.2 second margin is absolutely huge, particularly if they start to battle here between Coimbra and Adams. If they do start to battle, that margin is going to increase significantly. Now, as long as he hits his marks, Raph, with a 1.1 second advantage, which is absolutely huge in an MX-5 car, if it can now just keep the hammer down, hit his marks, and then make it to the pit stops, he will be absolutely fine, you would imagine. Here's Mitchell Peake. He's trying to make a little bit of a move on the cars ahead. Here's that wonderful onboard shot from the roll cage of Mitchell Peake, and the Canadian trying to make a move on Adams just ahead of him. Down into turn 1, he definitely isn't going to have the speed here to make the move. It would be a very audacious dive bomb. However, he is just going to spot the brake lights of Adams, try and brake a little bit later, make sure that he also doesn't career into the back of him, because that wouldn't be ideal at all. And then now down into the hairpin. He's going to stay line of stern. He's going to be really pressurised further back by McLeod, who himself has got Bamanek to worry about. So really, it's all about people, every man for himself here, trying to do the best for their own race. And sometimes cutting past someone immediately isn't the best for your own race, but you've kind of got to do it to stop yourself being overtaken yourself, even if you know that the only way to get that 1.2 second gap down is for everyone here to work together. I don't think they're going to be quite as complying as here we go. Here comes the move from Mitchell Peake as he tries down the inside to go for a move on the number 22. He's going to be given all the room in the world to make that one work, and it should work nice and easily for him. He's up into 3rd position, and really it was quite sensible of Adams not to really fight that one.
That's a tough corner to defend. You can really lose a lot of speed if you take a defensive entry in there, and I think that Adams made the right move to run a little bit wide just in case Mitchell ran a little bit wide too. That way they didn't lose too much time making the swap.
And a swap is really what it was. There wasn't too much of a battle going on there. It wasn't really a resistance on the side of Adams. I think he appreciated that really there's no point losing all that time fighting in this early stage of the race. Is actually further behind. The number 73 now is going to try and pressurise Adams a little bit, and Adams might. Oh no, actually, the number 56 is really pressurising. It's Peake. No, it's not Peake. It is Peake down the inside. He makes the move. He's up into 2nd position, and well, the number 56 car on an absolute charge at the moment. He thinks that actually the only way that I'm going to chase down the lead of the race is by being in front myself. So that's really what he's focused on doing at this stage. Here's Jedediah Bamanek watching all of this unfold in front of him. You can see McLeod is just still behind Adams, doesn't really want to go for the move at this stage. He threatened it at the early stages of this lap, but fought against it in the end, and now he has to sit in 5th position, just sit there pretty for a little bit. You can see immediately his first gaggle of, I want to say 10 cars or so, is just absolutely separated from 11 downwards. And a quick update on Stab down in 17th position in the number 36 machine. He's not quite been able to sift his way through the field. You can see now actually he's in a battle further behind with for 19th position with some of the open class cars. So he hasn't quite been able to get through the field as effectively as he'd like at this stage.
It just goes to show.
Pressure here.
It just goes to show what fighting will cause.
Oh, the number 21, as I apologise, Randall is onto the grass, and he went a little bit wide, perhaps got a little bit starry-eyed when trying to go for the move. There's Sabaleski and Rath are both into the pit lane. So race leader into the pit, and in fact the number 36 is into the pits as well. And I wonder, is that a bit of an early pit stop?
It's a bit early, but I'm also worried he may have picked up a penalty. They have a very strict pit entry limit here with that white line, and looked like he had 2 tires over that line. He may have gotten himself a drive-through for an unsafe pit entry.
And it's always a difficult pit lane here, and France actually got that chicane as well, and it's very tricky to navigate your way through, particularly on old tyres. But we've got a flurry of pit stops here, as you can see them flash up at the bottom of your screen. So Mitchell Peake has inherited the lead of the race, and a 6-second buffer as well to Coimbra behind, which means he can start to focus on, in this clean air, on getting forward and just trying to stay in the hunt and hopefully pull off a little bit of an undercut for his troubles as well. If Rath were to come out in dirty air, which he hasn't, he's come out in an 8-second buffer to 20th, he's come out in 21st, then you know, he'd be using that clean air to his advantage. But unfortunately for Mitchell Peake, Rath has come out into perfectly clean air, so he's timed his pit stop quite nicely if it is going to be an undercut. But obviously Mitchell Peake trying for the overcuts himself. You can see as well, just a little bit further back, the I don't know which car it is, but as we see the number 22 into the pits. The number 73 isn't it, McLeod. He's really racy. He's trying to find a way through, but there is no way through at this stage.
It's a very cagey pit stop by Tom Rath. While Mitchell Peake was making his way from 4th to 2nd, Tom Rath was able to open up another half-second gap. And as soon as Mitchell started closing it down, he pulled into the pits. So probably going to be the strategy move that wins him the race.
He's going to either winning or losing the race, one of the two. And Mitchell Peake at the moment is opening up the gap to the cars behind him as well. So really, he's just got to hope that he can make this overcut work nicely. And I'm not too sure when we will see him come into the pits. Here's the number 73, still trying to make his way up into 2nd position. It will be not a 2nd position when all the pit stops are said and done. But he's certainly going to try and make it a 2nd position at the moment. And, well, as we see, not really many overtaking opportunities here in Brands Hatch. They certainly have to be brave and bold. He's going to try and still just almost bump draft the number 78 down the straight and not quite find a way through at this stage, as they now head on through the left-hander down into the final corner on this circuit. It really is that first hairpin, isn't it, that is the overtaking spot here.
That is definitely the best spot. There are a few other places, but you have to be pretty aggressive, and you can find that if you're trying too much to get around somebody, you can quickly wear out the tires.
Mitchell Peake comes into the pit lanes. That's going to be crucial to see if he has been able to pull off the overcuts at this stage. Let's have a look on the track map as well. Keep an eye on that in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You're looking at number 9, Mitchell Peake, or the 9th position, Mitchell Peake, the red dot in the pit lane. And then we're trying to have a look for number 17, Rath, who's actually now coming around the final corner. So Mitchell Peake, I don't think, has been able to. He's moving again now, and Rath is coming down the pitch straight. So here's what's going to happen. Rath is going to get it into the race lead, I think, but it's going to be so close between him and Mitchell Peake. It's actually going to be a lesser gap than when they came into the pits. So Mitchell Peake, I believe, has actually almost pulled a little bit of a blinder. He's 9/10 of a second. It's not quite a blinder, but he has gained about 8/10 of a second on his rival for the race win here. He's now just got to kick back into gear in this second stint a lot quicker than he's currently doing. He's losing a little bit of time.
And he's got reinforcements in the form of Ronnie Coates. They might be able to bump draft or swap around and catch up to Tom Rath. It looked like Mitchell set up the final corner knowing that he was going to come into the pits and was able to attack the pit entry. So that may have gained him a few tenths on the stop as well.
And of course, you can play with your fuel and things like that. You know, if you're planning to go a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, 25 minutes is all that they have to do at this stage, so they should be able to get to the end on these tyres and on this fuel. And at the moment, it is Rath who leads the way by 1.1 seconds. He leads the way at least. He will do once all the pit stops come in. Coimbra has taken to the pits, so has Hayes. And, well, I think it's only going to be a matter of time before McLeod, Babanek and Palici come into the pits as well. But at the moment, as we see actually, Mitchell Beek almost, I believe, there let Coates through, knowing that the race lead is the bigger prospect here. He really pulled the early pit stop, didn't he? And, well, now we see more traffic merging in, and it was that just a little bit ahead that Thomas Rath has got through on.
It's Rui Coimbra.
It's Coimbra, so he's got through as well on Mitchell Peak. So he's actually pulled off an overcut on the man doing the main overcut. And now he is stuck behind Coates, and Adams is just behind him, breathing down his neck as well. I'm not too sure, with all respect to Coates, I'm not too sure he's got the pace to be, you know, chasing down the race leader here, which I think is going to be frustrating Mitchell Peak.
We'll see what Ronnie does here with Rui. I suspect that he won't sit behind Rui Coimbra for very long. He'll be looking to get around and trying to catch up to Tom Rath. But Tom has really taken off and has built that gap back up. Already up to a 1.5 seconds over Rui. So they got to do something quick.
And it feels weird to say they've got to do something quick in a race that's still got 22 minutes now left to run. 23 minutes. My mental maths is certainly not a place where I excel. But in 23 minutes time, it's plenty of time to relax and just choose your moves. But really, you've got to be thinking of the long game here. And in those 23 minutes time, you don't want to be spending the last 10 minutes chasing down a second to the leader of the race, who now, by the way, has got a 1.8 second margin. He is absolutely bossing this, is Rath, at the moment. And I don't see, as we see actually further back, Mitchell Peak now is going to try and make a move on Coates at the top of your picture. But at the moment, Rath seems to be absolutely flying in this race.
Quite the train going for second, third, fourth, fifth here. And sixth place hanging on to the end of that as well. It's going to be really hard to close that gap, though. Like you said earlier, anything over a second is almost insurmountable in an MX-5 race, especially as you get towards the end and people start getting more aggressive.
There's so fine margins in MX-5. Everyone's on a roughly equal level of pace as well. It's very rare that you see someone, 2 seconds off the pace, as you would say in a GT3 endurance races. Everyone's so similar. Everyone's got so much experience in these cars, obviously from doing the rookie class races and things, that really a second is such a huge gap. Now though, we're seeing a three-way battle between Coates, Coimbra and Peak. Peak is just trying to attack Coates, which is forcing Coates to have to try and attack the guy ahead of him, which is Coimbra. You can see Mitchell Peak really wanting to get on with this as quickly as he can. At every opportunity, he's trying to show his nose to Coates, just try and say, please, get out of the way. I practically let you through, so I'm really hoping you're going to not at least battle me too hard yourself. But I don't think that's really how racing drivers think. Here is the pit stop strategy with a stint length, which is actually a surprisingly useful graphic here, with McLeod is on the joint longest pit stop with Palici, Martin, Lombardi, Kosic, Olsen and Vaccaro. So I don't know what to make of that really in the longer run here, but McLeod is really having a long stint here out in the front.
And everything really came up Tom Rath through that whole cycle of pit stops. He pit very early, and there's always the threat of coming out with slower traffic to deal with. It'll slow you down and cost you lap time. But every time he started to close the door on any of those open class drivers and start to catch them, they were pulling into the pit right in front of him. So he just had nothing but clean air the whole time.
And yes, and that was always very, very useful for him as well. And obviously McLeod is going to concede the lead to Rath when we get back round. Rath's pace has just been absolutely incredible. Almost 2 seconds he leads now from this little leading gaggle of cars. And in fact, Coates now is going to go for a move, and he is going to pull to make the move on the number 78 down into the right-hander. And again, you're not going to be defending a move there. It's practically a blind corner. You can't see where you're going. And if you've got a car on the inside, it makes it all the more difficult. And he's through is Ronnie Coates, a smart place to make a move, and a move smartly made as well. McLeod is finally into the pits. It's taken him 15 laps, the longest stint length of the day so far. That being said, Pollicci is going to take that title on his 16-lap stint length, but it's going to be interesting now to see where McLeod comes into the pits. You can see this gaggle of cars. He's just rounding the final corner, so when he comes out, I apologise, I meant when he comes out, not when he comes in. We know he's in, but as these cars round the final corner now, he's not even moving yet, so he is obviously going to lose to these cars. But the question is, how badly is he going to lose as he finally does start moving and will just come out behind this gaggle of cars, it looks like. And it was McLeod, wasn't it, just at the back there. So actually, we want to focus on the open class. And here is a battle for something in the open class. This is actually Lee Martin going for the move for the technically the lead of the race, though it's not totally. You've got pit stops to think about, and on 16 laps these they're very deep into their stint, but Lee Martin is technically going for the lead of the overall race here. And he's really had a great deal of pace here, hasn't he, Lee Martin, and to be pressurising pro class cars, and Pollicci was in the top 10 as well. It really is a good day for him.
We weren't really using all the track there. You see, he was getting tires off into the grass. He's really feeling the pressure. Oh, we had contact.
And that good day I was talking about has just got a little bit worse, and it's got a lot worse for Pollicci, who is round, and they just mistook each other's braking points, I think, and that can sometimes happen towards the end of a stint. You get a little bit difficult, a little bit tired, and well, here's what happened once again. Eugenio Pollicci in the number 7 car from Italy goes into the final corner, and he basically just gets bumped. And I think maybe there was a jump onto the curb for Lee Martin, and it just unsettled him a little bit. But regardless, the result was clear for all to see. And well, the stewards might be having to have an opinion on that one very soon, but we'll wait and see. Lee Martin does lead the open class, however, and he leads it by quite a significant margin as well.
It's a tale as old as time. It's the old commentator's curse. As soon as we put them on the screen and start talking about them, an incident happens and ruins your race.
And as we see Lee first overall, we're going to have a quick look through the field and just give you a total update onto everything that's going on at this stage, with just a little over 15 minutes to go, as Lee Martin leads the race from Lombardy in second position, and he's going quite well on debut, going on the long stint, of course, 17 laps, and we'll expect him in any moment now. Then we have Josh Olsen in the number 21 car as Lee Martin does come into the pits. The number 21 actually having the leaders breathing down his neck at this stage, so I'd suspect he might come into the pits on this occasion, as I think it'd be pretty insensible for him to do. Yes, he doesn't want to bother with the traffic. Well, of course, here is the man who's about to inherit the lead of the race, Rath, and he's been driving absolutely superbly so far. 2.3 seconds is almost like a 7-second gap in Formula 1. It's absolutely huge and unsurprisingly fairly insurmountable, as Coates is the man trying to chase him down, Ronnie Coates, and he managing to get himself up to the top of this little gaggle here. He is trying his best to hold off the guys behind whilst chasing down the lead of the race. Coimbra is will be in third position from Mitchell Peak, Babinek and Adams, and I think he'll also be pretty happy to just sit where he is at the moment. Mitchell Peak has been making moves all the way throughout this race, and still sat just outside the podium positions, which will be ever so frustrating for him. It's a similar story for Babinek and Adams, and of course McLeod behind, who has been very, very racy all evening long, but not quite able to turn those racy moves into anything positive.
Jordy Fike was up closer to the front before an incident going into turn 1, and it looks like he's managed to hang on to the lead pack. He's just a little bit off now of Adam McLeod, hoping to catch back up and maybe make some moves towards the end of the race here. Kevin Stab, currently running 10th on track, will eventually be 9th overall, as now we see Ray Lombardi has pulled into the pits and will have a full shakeout of the order. Behind him is Lee Martin leading the open class. So after that incident, I guess not much damage to him. We haven't heard anything from the stewards yet, if there will be any investigation into that. Simon Foweather is now in 11th, as we see Ray Lombardi come out of the pits.
Merge just back into 12th position on debut, with Palucci in 13th after that incident, and he was going along quite nicely until that point. But now has got Lombardi just ahead of him. He can set his sights on that at least. Here is Sean Hayes as well, down in 14th position, second place in the open class, and he was so fast last week, wasn't he? On his own accord, essentially, he threw away the race victory, and that was particularly disappointing for him. But David Stab has been all night long trying to sift his way through the field, hasn't quite been able to do it as effectively as he would like, as he's still got a little bit of open traffic to put his way through, though he's been doing a rather good job so far. With Sancinelli, Edgar Sancinelli for Fritto Sport Racing Team, down in 16th position, still just in the podium positions for the open class, so he'll be pretty happy with that, I am sure. He's got Tom Afton breathing down his neck, and Tom just in the number 077, trying to just catch up a little bit. 1.1 seconds is that gap, and we did say that that's quite a large gap. But in the open class, I suppose a little bit less is the number 21 and the number 18. We watched number 50, not the number 18, so I apologise. Kosic and Olsen also having relatively quiet races, just focusing on themselves.
Charles Vaccaro here is sitting behind Olsen and Kosic in 20th position, hoping maybe that they get into each other and give him an opportunity to gain a couple free spots here. Greg Brockway is running 21st here, kind of on his own in a safety bubble, just trying to lay down some good laps and have a clean rest of the race. We jump back to Paulo Coimbra, who is currently 25th according to my standings, also kind of on his own on an island and just clicking off the laps, waiting for that timer to run out. Ryan Sabatowski is in 22nd, going through turn 1 here. I believe he had an incident earlier, and he's down quite a few spots from where he qualified.
And so as we get back on with the race at hand, Rath is leading the way with about 12 minutes to go in the Spec-5 World Tour Round 9, and what a performance it has been from this man out of New England in the USA, racing in actual England, and at least virtually. He is absolutely bossing it, I think is the only word. And if the Grand Slam was really viable in this league, then he would certainly be taking it. He's been absolutely unparalleled. And even though Ronnie Coates is trying to lead the resistance, as it were, with the number 73 trying to make a move down into turn 1, actually that's McLeod. He is going to make that move on the... I want to say that would be Adams, and Adams actually gets back through in the end as well. In fact, they're still side by side, are McLeod and Adams, and McLeod eventually gets on through. Odis Adams Jr. now finding himself under pressure from the number 9 car, who tries to make a move around the outside, but was a little bit opportunistic in the end. Now he switches to the inside and doesn't quite have the exit speed, and that would be frustrating for him, and it was certainly a frustrating one. But back to the point, Coimbra and Coates are trying to lead this resistance, to try and get those 2.5 seconds back. but with 10 minutes to go, it might be a bit of a fruitless task. And well, I think Coimbra now, you can see by the body language of the cars, same with Mitchell Peak, they're starting to think actually maybe Ronnie isn't the best person to be leading this train, and maybe we need to perhaps at one stage throw out this race win idea and start to think actually we need positions on the podium. You know, we need to think about our better points finishing positions. Let's just forget about the race win, that's gone. And I wonder at what stage they do that, Rondo.
I expect to see some elbows out pretty soon as we see somebody going toward the defensive line here. It's Roy Coimbra under pressure from Mitchell Peak. I definitely suspect we'll be seeing elbows out. We see Ruiz taking another defensive line into the final corner here. Lots of pressure from Mitchell Peak. Looks like he's going to try to over-under him and bring him side by side down the front straightaway and try to set up a move in turn 1. He may even clear him before turn 1.
He's certainly going to give it a go. And I don't think he's going to quite clear him into turn 1, but he's certainly going to push him out wide. And in fact, there's going to be more of a move further down the order as Babinek, I think that is trying to get on through on Coimbra. It's the number 78 now on the outside. You can see Babinek is going to try and go through down the inside into the hairpin. And, well, they're sort of caught up together and he's not able to get himself through in the end. And they merge back together. So actually, it was almost a little bit scary from Coimbra, who almost lost a couple of positions. And Babinek actually now is back down the outside, so he's going to lose a couple of positions in the end. And it's like opening a can of worms when you get overtaken here. When one comes, the other comes nice and quickly afterwards. And, well, he's got through as Coimbra.
McLeod looking to take over for Babinek here. Trying to do the same move that Babinek did to Coimbra. This is really starting to get exciting now. We're going to start seeing these guys fight for the podium. No surprise that there's a lot of aggression. They've been sitting on it for 40 minutes or so. They're ready to fight, and all thoughts of drafting and trying to catch the leader have gone out the window, and you might start seeing some other things out the window here as you start seeing some moves being thrown here, maybe some dive bombs, maybe a little bit of dooring each other. These guys are normally pretty clean, but a little contact can't always be avoided in these cars.
Absolutely, we want to see a little bit of contact anyway. Not too much, but just a little bit that shows they're actually going for it. But no, this is where the can of worms has opened, and this is where we say that actually, no, the race lead's absolutely gone. We now need to focus on ourselves, focus on battling for these podium positions. That's what these guys are doing, and you can see immediately there's a move from the number 56. He thinks about number 55, thinks about it. In fact, the number 56 is the one that is round, and it's Mitchell Peak, and he collects the number 55 as well. Mitchell Peak, I'm not too sure what happened there, but it's going to allow the 73 to try and get on through. The number 73 does gain a position on Babinek, and now Babinek is going to find himself under a little bit of pressure. He's got McLeod, and in fact it's Babinek getting back through on McLeod. Here's what happened then. So he, I think, lost it on his own, did Mitchell Peak, and then he just collected. That's Babinek in the number 55, isn't it? And then there was the number 73 is on through. So that was a dramatic turn of events, and now you can see the number 73 battling the 22 of Adams, and McLeod is trying to get back through on that one. He's down the inside. He's going to have to stick this one out, and he's sticking it out rather bravely. The number 22 was forced onto the grass almost for a second. This is incredible side-by-side action from these two down into the right-hander, and just about in the end, McLeod stays on through. The number 9 is trying to get involved in the action. That is Geordie Fike, and he in the end, I think, thought actually, no, not actually, I'm going alongside now, and he is alongside with the number 22 around the outside. That's not an easy place to make a move from Geordie Fike, and I think in the end his sensibility got the better of him, and he's going to have to now go side by side and think about turn 1. There's absolutely no slipstream here, so this is just a battle of who has got the better top speed down into turn 1. You can see Geordie Fike down the inside in the number 9 car. He saw the switchback well and truly early on in the last corner of the previous lap, and he thought actually down the inside into turn 1 is going to be where I'm going to be able to make this move, and I'll keep the inside heading through the hairpin as well. That was superb racing, a perfect setup from Geordie Fike. Here's Mitchell Peak trying to make his moves to the podium. Now is what they're going to focus on in the final 5 minutes and 30 seconds of this race, and all of a sudden it's every man for himself, Randall.
That's right. Some of these guys, faster guys in the front, will be looking at their opponents, trying to see when they're going to make a mistake. They're thinking 2 and 3 corners ahead of how am I going to set this guy up? How am I going to get the slipstream to catch up to him, get a good run out of a corner, maybe try to over-under somebody once they get them in a defensive position. We see that a lot out of the final corner in the past few laps. Mitchell Peak still having a look at Roy Coimbra. Hot on him. I think actually in that incident earlier, Mitchell may have had a little bit of help from the 78 car getting around there. So hopefully he's not seeing red too much as we see Jed Babinek running off into the grass again. We've seen a few cars go off there. It's very easy to overshoot that corner. It's very blind. The track becomes much narrower in your mind than it actually is. We're going to see a replay here of Jed Babinek.
And Jed just a little bit onto the grass, and then the car were you essentially a passenger in. He did well not to career into the barrier as well, because that would have been a dramatic accident, probably taken a couple of people out with him. But we're back to live pictures as soon as we're in the replay, and it's the magic of broadcast. Isn't that wonderful? You've still got Mitchell Peak trying to make a move for the podium. Ronnie Coates has done quite well here. He was essentially let through earlier in the race, as it was kind of seen as not wanting to lose time batting. He's just held on to the position, so really fair play to him. And Mitchell Peak will be feeling a little bit disappointed in his own race management skills if he's not able to nick a podium here. That being said, 4th position in a 26-man field is always something to be at least smile about, as I suppose if you're not last, you're doing something right. But Peak really needs to think about a way to get through here. He's not got too much pressure from behind, and I'd suspect into what I imagine is going to be the last 3 laps of the race at the line. I think it's going to be, oh, here is the move. Never mind about waiting. He's going to go through immediately. Is Mitchell Peak, and he gets the move sorted. Now they're still side by side, and Mitchell Peak is through into 3rd position. And well, he really, I didn't expect that, that's for certain. I thought he was going to wait, but no, he said you've left a little bit of a door open, so I'm going to storm through it.
So I suspect Roy Coimbra ran a little bit wide and had to feather the throttle, or possibly is returning the position after the previous incident. He's not going to let him run away, that's for sure.
No, certainly not. And, well, with just a couple of minutes to go now, a couple of laps, that's for certain. It really was time that he made that move for Mitchell Peak.
We'll see if they have anything for Ronnie Coates. Mitchell's had pace all day, so I suspect he might have something for him here. Can run him down the straightaway with the slipstream. I suspect Ronnie is a little nervous now.
Just a little nervous, Ronnie, though he's holding on at the moment nicely.
Everybody's getting catching their breath here before the final scrum when we get to the white flag.
Yep, and well, just a couple of laps to go now, not long until we get to that all-important white flag, when the gloves well and truly come off and the drivers start to focus on one thing and one thing only, and getting to the flag in the best position, because race management does go out the window when you're on that white flag, and you've got basically one thing on your mind. So I apologise, having a little bit of an issue with my my timing screens for a second, but we're all sorted, as it was a little bit scary for a second, but a minute to go. So this will be the white flag now, I'm almost certain. The white flag is in the air, and almost certainly Rath is going to win, but the focus on our minds for certain is whether Ronnie Coates is going to hold on to the 2nd position for Mitchell Peak. Is Mitchell Peak going to be able to hold on to the podium, or is Coimbra and Babinek going to try and throw their hats into the ring? At the moment it is Ronnie Coates holding on to it quite nicely. Of course, Rath is almost a certain winner at this stage. Mitchell Peak has to go a little bit defensive on Coimbra, but Coimbra is going to stay behind in the end. It would have been a by far ludicrous move if he was to make it at that particular stage, but you can see how much of the track Ronnie Coates is using. He's really just trying to get this car home, A, in one piece, but B, in second position. I think he'd rather second position, at this stage. And I think it's essentially second position or bust for Ronnie Coates if it were to come to it. 0.3 of a second isn't too great of a margin to defend in the MX-5 cars, though, you could see him doing it, especially as we head towards the back end of this lap. I can see the Sector 2 timing beam as Mitchell Peake goes for the move. He puts his nose in there, and in the end, Ronnie Coates is just going to have to tell him, please, go away. You can see the 73 is trying to make a move, but Mitchell Peake at the moment, as we head to the well and truly the back end of this circuit, Mitchell Peake still stays behind. He's going to be one more opportunity. He almost slides his way through the corner. That's how much he's trying to get this second position. Also, trying to make sure he doesn't lose third position as well. You can see at the back, they're still having a little bit of a scrap, but there's a move for third position from number 78. It's going to be a little bit in vain as Rath comes on through to win the race. Absolutely dominant from him. And now the number 73 is trying to go for fourth position. It's a little bit of a drag race to the line. The number 73 isn't going to get it. Coimbra finishes fourth. Coates finishes second. And Peake finishes third. And that is how the podium runs. And as for the open category, it's going to be Lee Martin who comes home to win that one. Sean Hayes in second position. And on debut, Lombardi finishes in 14th. I believe he's a pro car. I don't think we've quite got him into the overrides and HUL documents and things, but Sancelli finishes third for open class, and then Afton is in fourth. And that was a pretty incredible end to a 45-minute race, Randall.
I'd say so. I suspect there may have been some contact between the 73 and the 55 in Sterling's. Adam McLeod definitely got the run out of Sterling's, but as we saw Babbitt come to the line, he was very squirrely. Maybe he had some rear end damage. And
the damage is quite exaggerated on this game. It's very, very tricky. I've heard, and if you get even the slightest attacks, you can get some quite damaging damage, if that makes any sense. It could be quite significant. But Gonzalez crosses the line, and then Casey, John Casey for 046 Racing, is going to come home in 24th position, and it is never nice finishing that far down the order, but at least you could say that you did get to the end of the race, an important testing for the car as well. Here is the race leader, race winner now, not even the race winner. What a performance from Tom Rath, Randall.
He was the class of the field for sure. Nobody really had anything for him, and an incredibly well-timed pit stop paid off for him. And we thought we were going to see some drama there as Mitchell came out of the pits, but he was able to open that gap back up pretty quickly.
And, well, as we are waiting for a couple of interviews, I've just realised I've made the mistake of closing down my timing screen a little bit prematurely. So I believe I'll give the responsibility of reading the race results to you, Randall.
Tom Rath won by so much that the timing doesn't even pick him up anymore. It doesn't show him on the race results. So we know that Tom Rath won the race here. Ronnie Coates managed to pull off second place. Mitchell Peake came in third. Rui Coimbra in fourth. Adam McLeod in fifth with that last lap move on Jedediah Babbitt for that fifth position, putting Jedediah back to sixth place. Odise Adams Jr. in seventh, Jordy Fike in eighth, Kenneth Stab in ninth place, Simon Foweather in 10th place, Lee Martin in 11th place on track, but first place in the open division. Eugenio Pulici brings it home 12th, Sean Hayes in 13th, Ray Lombardi, actually I think he may be in the open division, would round out the open division podium. Edgar Sancinelli in 15th, Tom Athon in 16th, Charles Vaccaro in 17th. David Stab managed to make his way up to 18th after starting last. Andrew Kosick in 19th. And we're waiting for the results to page here. I can bring them up quickly.
And yes, it appears we've got a little bit of a technical issue. But what we are going to do for certain is... oh, there we go. Apparently, I mean, told we've got them. So go ahead, Randall.
Josh Olson finishes in 20th, Greg Brockway in 21st, Brian Sabaleski in 22nd, Jose Gonzalez in 23rd, John Casey brings it home 24th, Paulo Coimbra in 25th, and Greg Mack, hoping to have better luck next week, brings it home last in 26th.
Just the one interview at the moment. I think we'll have another one as well as it comes, but we'll speak to race winner. We'll speak to Tom Rath. And Tom, I mean, no one could hold a candle to you today. Just how did you put on such a dominant performance in a series where dominant performances tend to be pretty few and far between?
I don't know. I fully expected guys to be right there, but somehow I don't know if they had a couple more bobbles and got a 10th here, 10th there, and I thought they had me after the pit stop, but fortunately I think they all took tires back there, and I was able to pull back away a little bit, break the draft.
Well, that would certainly explain why you were able to open the gap back up quicker if they had cold tires to contend with and you didn't.
Yeah, I took left side. Most people do here. It's pretty brutal on the left tires. And that first lap out, you got to be really careful. So, I was hoping I could push them a little bit, and then maybe they'd try a little too hard and it would cost them. And it seemed everybody that came out had that issue. At least that's how it seemed.
So tell me about your stop. Were you watching your mirror to see when somebody would make a move for second place and then time your pit stop then? Or were you planning on stopping that early to begin with?
No, I was going to stop that early to begin with. I was, quite frankly, just so pissed off. I didn't prepare myself enough last week. I took way too much gas. So this time I said, I'm going to know exactly what I need to finish the race with. And I went in early. I love Brands Hatch. And I was just hoping, other folks would stay out and fight a little bit, and it'd just give me a little extra time. And, maybe that's what it was, that maybe that was the difference. It's not much.
And thank you very much for joining us, Tom, and enjoy the win. It was certainly a very, very dominant performance indeed.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for the broadcast, too.
And that was Tom Rath, your race winner. And, second place in the race was Ronnie Coates, and he'll join us now. Ronnie, and really, no one quite saw you coming into second position there. And then all of a sudden, you got Mitchell. We thought, well, actually, you're just kind of working in the pack, and eventually you'll get overtaken again. But you held on to it in the end. How was the pressure in those final few laps?
Oh, it was tense. It was very tense. The whole pack, everybody right behind us there, really tight. And I had started to close up on Tom a little bit. I was almost within draft, and when I passed Drewy, I was a little out of it, and I was right there, and then just lap traffic kind of helped him a little bit, and kind of felt like it hurt me a little. He got a little draft on one straight away, and I didn't quite get the same deal. I got past the guy in the corner, and after that, I couldn't put it together again.
And surely at second position you'll be feeling pretty happy with. Did you think maybe with in fact, you took quite an early pit stop, didn't you? If I'm correct in saying, what was the thinking behind that?
You know what? Tom was making the pace, and like you said, I was hung up in traffic there, so there was no sense in me. I mean, I was just out for a Sunday drive there, the first, probably 10 laps. Just that, fine. You're that. You want to go buy that back? Go ahead. I'm going for the long game here after the pit stop. So when he pitted, I was like, I didn't want him to get away. But unfortunately, it seemed like each person that came out was just enough to impede me on my flying lap when they came out, and they were on cold tires. So kind of lost that advantage on that.
And we won't keep you long, so thank you very much, Ronnie, for joining us, and hopefully we speak to you next week after an equally as exciting race.
Awesome, thank you. Have a great night.
And that was Ronnie Coates, and just like that, another week of Spec-5 World Tour is done. And Randall, thank you very much for joining me. Before we round out the stream, have you got any closing thoughts?
Was much cleaner than I expected that opening lap, to be honest. And the pit cycle managed to create quite a bit of chaos, as we heard. So it's a great race, and hopefully we see even more of it next week.
And I echo those thoughts. So, from me, Tom Dillon, and him, Randall McGrew, and of course, our producer, Ian Fisher, who I actually realised I so selfishly haven't shouted out yet this stream, but he's been doing all of your cameras and things. Thank you very much to him, as per usual. We'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you all later. Good night.